This conference will now be recorded.
Morning,
Yes, it is.
Sujit.
Hi. Yeah, so what we discussed in the last session?
I discussed about the REST API, RAML, Design Center, and Exchange, Anypoint Studio, Public Portal, and API Manager, defining security policies on API Manager.
Yes, we discussed basically about the architecture of any point platform. What are the applications present in it? Each application pointing to what? I mean, responsibility of that each application in a one-liner, right? So in that process, we have seen design center to design an API and to simulate and to get a feedback. And then we publish that onto the exchange to convert into UI format. From that exchange, we share it to the public portal, and client can access and can give the response. I mean, in feedback to the client, feedback to the developer. Accordingly, if once the sign off is done, then that API will be imported onto the studio, either from different locations. So once it is imported onto the studio, next once it is imported to the studio, once you have written the logic, implementation logic for that, then testing. Testing will be done by using an MUnit framework, right? After that, after the testing, you can deploy into the servers, mule server by using to a few different deployment strategies. And then, if you want to secure the application, we can have one proxy at API manager level, and then we can create a policies and we can apply the policies on that, right? So now, today we are going to start with our first Hello World project. I hope everyone set up the Anypoint Studio, and we are going to do the practical session in that. Okay. My question to everyone, one more question is: the environment variable setup, is it done? JDK, is it set up? Environment
Yes.
variables
Yes.
and Anypoint Studio setup. All these three right now are important, right? So I hope everyone have these three on your mission right now. Yeah. Okay. Please listen very carefully this session. Okay. How the request will come, how the response will go, entire thing will be, you'll understand. As I told, we are concentrating first on development area, and we are assuming the API is created for that, right? And for that API, we are going to deploy develop the application and deploy the application as well, right? So my first point is, in the SDLC process, what is the first part? The SDLC process was the first part,
Gathering the requirement.
gathering the requirement. Assume that client has given some requirement to you in a text format to get hello world as
Babu,
an
Talpet
output.
Babu.
So background noise, please check this. So hello world. Hello world is the simple output he required as a body. So simple plain text, he want to get this as a output body. Okay. So as a developer, what is the API you are going to create? You are going to create a REST API what information you are going to provide in that REST API for your mule application to get that output as hello world. What information you will be providing the API if you are a API developer? Yes.
Request
Yeah.
body if it's there.
No, no. See, understand the requirement. I want to get a hello world as an output. So that output I am going to configure in the mule application. So client want to send a request to your mule application. Client directly cannot send, right? So he need required an API of your mule application. So that's API we are designing now. Yeah.
We need an endpoint. It's
Endpoint
the
and
it's the
method. Method, right? Endpoint and a method. So of course URL we divide that in the API will not give entire URL. We will provide the method and the resource. So what method I can configure? Can I configure a get method? Yes, because I'm going to get a
yes.
hello world as output. So get method, and let's take slash hello world is the endpoint, some meaningful endpoint, right? And this API is having a base path like slash base path. Okay, this entire API is having a slash base path as a base path, right? Next, what and all the information will be provided in that where your application is running. Let's take it is localhost, and by default your mule application will be running on 8081. Okay, these are the information provided in the API. Now, as a client, based on this API, you are going to consume the operation. So, which application you are going to use as a client application? We are going to use Postman. Everyone using a Postman in your application generally?
Yes.
If anyone not done, just go to the browser, just type Postman download. It is straightforward. Just click on download, it will be downloaded. Okay, and once the Postman is loaded, once you Postman installed and start that one, it is going to look like this. Basically any Postman is going to look like this is the welcome screen, right? One second. Yeah, it will be look like this. From here you are going to send a request to the REST application to consume. Okay, now this is the Postman, and based on this API I want to send a request. So what could be the request now? Get is the method. What is the official protocol for REST applications? HTTP is the protocol. And what is the domain? Guys, please participate. Localhost, port number
8081. 8081.
8081 slash.
Hello world.
Yeah, no, there is a base path for this entire API, so
Okay. Slash base
base
path
path
slash
slash
hello world.
endpoint
Hello.
hello world. Okay, now where the request will go, we should have developed the application by that time, right? So hierarchy of a mule application. What is the hierarchy? Mule application contains set of
Flow.
XML files. Each XML contains flow definitions. Each flow contains orchestration logic. So now assume that we are creating one mule flow. This is your mule flow. What is the typical structure of a mule flow, guys?
Or
What is the typical structure of a mule flow?
Source process error handling.
What is it? Source, process, and a error handling. We are not going to discuss about any error handling as of now. We will discuss that later. Source, process, and error handler. So as I told, when I import this API onto Anypoint Studio, automatically flows will get generated for each and every method and a resource, right? So in order to listen to the request in your API, I mean your mule application is going to exposed with the HTTP listener. That means this HTTP listener, I will configure one component called listener. listener to listen to the request. Okay, and what type of request we are listening here? HTTP. So HTTP listener. So in your mule project there are modules. Out of that one module we need to add as a dependency. What is it? HTTP module will need to be added as a dependency. Under that HTTP module there is a connector called listener. I just drag and drop the listener here. Now I need to establish one connection. How to establish any connection? See, by just drag and drop the listener will not say that is the connection is created. Now we need to explicitly by using a plus sign in the HTTP listener or in the global element you can create. So I have shown you the glance of an XML file already. I think
Yes.
so, right? Message flow,
Yes.
global element, and configuration XML. So in the message flow, we are creating all these flows. From the message flow, from the component level, I can create a connection. That is one. Second point is from the global element by using a create option also we can create one. So somehow I am creating a connection details. I'm configuring the connection details. I will give the name as connection one. What information will be present in that? Host will be present, port number will be present, and base path will be present. So I am configuring this in connection as localhost 8081 by default, and base path is slash base path. Okay, I will use that connection to this HTTP listener. Next, what else the configuration I need to do at my listener level?
Method.
Endpoint.
Okay.
That means endpoint, right? So in the general path, in the HTTP listener, there is something called general path where I should point to slash hello world. So this endpoint is configured. So till here, sorry, from here to here, this is unique for entire application. Okay, how it will different from one to one? Method and a resource combination. Okay, so in this HTTP listener I configure by default HTTP listener will be configured with a get method and slash hello world is the general path, and I'm using this connection to listen. Okay, now my HTTP listener listen to the request. Now let's take one HTTP message got created. One HTTP message got created. So what is HTTP message format? It contains two parts. What are those? Any message contains two parts. What are those?
Header and body.
Header and a body. Okay. Now I said header and a body, right? My HTTP listener will convert that plain HTTP message to mule related message. Mule related message. I can call this as a mule message, which contains again two parts. So this header will be considered as attributes, will be called as attributes in a mule message. This body will be called as payload. That body will be called as payload, right? So recently rocket is launched. In that they may say that it is taken in some kilo of payload. Payload means what in that context? Payload means some content, some body, right? So the same terminology here. Payload means body. From now onwards you are going to use this terminologies, not header and a body. We are going to use payload and the attributes. You need to understand payload means some body, some content. Attribute means some input parameters like query parameter, URI parameter. All these are attributes. Okay, now um, my HTTP listener listen to the plain request, converts into mule related message. For understanding purpose, I said HTTP message to mule message, but actually it will convert plain HTTP request to one structure. This is the core structure in an entire MuleSoft, and the entire your MuleSoft follows this approach. What is that? The structure, the design is named as mule event. Mule event contains two parts again. One is you know already, mule message, and next part is variables. You can create a number of variables in the event, right? So mule message contains what? Attributes and payload, right? So my HTTP listener listen for the request converts into mule event, so that will be stored in a queue. So right now, can anyone tell me what is the structure of a mule event at this level? Immediately after the listener, when the request is sent to process part, when the request is sent to process part, in that process part, immediately after the listener, event will be decided based on the input request. Okay, so in the request, in the incoming request, or else in the API for this get slash hello world, is there any input parameter is going to send?
No.
No, right? So input parameters means attributes. So empty attributes. It's a empty container. Basically, mule event is a by default empty container. According to the input, it will be decided what values are present in that. So right now it is an empty attributes. What about payload?
E- Empty payload?
Because it's a get method, it's not coming with any body. So empty payload. And what about variables? Did I, okay, any which was first instance in the first event, variables will be zero because we don't have any variables by that time. So we didn't create it even. So empty variables. This is the default structure immediately after the listener, and these attributes or payload will be decided based on the input request. Okay. Next, what is the component I required in order to set the payload value in the event as a hello world? In MuleSoft there are some transformers. There are some transformers. Under that, one of the transformer is set payload transformer. So I will configure one component called set payload. Name of that component is set payload. By seeing the name itself, you might have understand what is the functionality of this. It is going to set the payload value. Okay, so by default, the event, whatever the event we have in the previous queue, that will be given as an input to the component. Okay, now on top of this event, what modifications you are going to do? By using the set payload, we are going to set the payload value in the event. Okay, so we can set the payload value in two ways. One is plain text mode, we'll call that as a literal mode. A second mode is to get a dynamic values, we'll use expression mode. So what type of expressions we'll write in a set payload? Sorry, in MuleSoft, what type of expressions we write?
Mule expressions.
Of course, mule expression, no, we'll not name that.
Data view expressions.
Exactly, what is the language we are going to use here? Data view language, basically data view expressions. If you see the technically, technically it is a data view language. If you divide the word data view language, data, you are aware what is the meaning of view? Did I explain this point already?
No.
View means what? View
No,
means what
Stitch.
is the general meaning of weaving?
Stitching.
Hmm? Stitching?
creating a fabric using a string.
Pardon? Come again?
Creating some fabric using some kind of thread.
It's kind of a stitching kind of stuff, I can say. Generally, if I want to, general common sense, if I apply that to view meaning stitching. So in this scenario, in this context, what we are stitching here, if you connect with a third party application or if you connect with a database, once you get the core data according to your client requirement, you are going to modify the data, transform the data, right? So indirectly, can I say that we are weaving the data there according to our client requirement? We are going to write our own logic. We are going to convert into our own format, right? So generally, if you want to remember the concepts like that, I mean, I will think in this way. So general, I mean, of course, the names will come from there only. You know about a MuleSoft. What is a MuleSoft icon? How the MuleSoft icon will look like? Is it not look like a donkey? Yes or no? Yeah.
Yeah.
Previously, it was called as a Mule Force. Mule Force is the name. What is the representing of the Mule Force is? Actual meaning is to escape the donkey work. To escape the donkey work, this mule is introduced. Okay, so why? Because we are acting as a middleware between two entities. So it we are acting like a donkey work. I mean, we are going to do the donkey work. To escape that, we have some tool like MuleSoft. Okay, so all the names will come from the general concepts only. Okay, so like that you need to understand. So data view language, and which version of data view language in MuleSoft 4 we are using? 2.0. MuleSoft in Mule 4, especially it will support only data view language 2.0. So it's too early to talk about a data view expressions and all. We will see first how to set that hello world by using a little more. Okay, so in this set payload there is one point called value. In this value you need to set. So as I told, two ways, right? There is one switch, fx switch. Okay, why I'm telling as a switch? By clicking on this fx, it will convert to expression mode. Okay, if I click that fx again, it will move to literal mode. Okay, affects like a switch. Now I want to set the value for this event as hello world. So simply I will write in the value hello world. Okay, now tell me what is the structure of an event after the set payload?
Uh,
Empty attribute.
Empty attributes, because I didn't modify any attributes here. Okay,
And the payload
Payload
will be
is
hello world.
payload is hello world. Next, empty variables. Correct. Okay, now I have written one simple expression. Maybe it is very easy to capture, and if I want to reuse that also in going forward, I can simply rewrite it again. Okay, but the point is, if I have multiple lines of expression as a payload, and I know that I'm going to reuse that again and again, so what is the idea? What I can do
global
as a
element.
developer? Pardon?
Global element.
Global element is only for connections, not for the logic.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, what I can do?
Variable.
Exactly. What is the concept of reusability? Mostly we use variable to store that, right? So in order to, one second, yeah. So in order to reuse any expressions or anything, we can use one more transformer called set variable. Set variable. So basically, variable means what? Um, Variable is an object, I can say, which contains key value pairs, which contains key and a value. It's like a map. Variable is like a map which contains key and a value. Okay, so variable name will be treated as a key. Variable value, I mean, whatever the expression you are going to write, whatever the logic you are going to write, it will be considered as a value, right? For example, let's take, I'm creating a variable called x, and I want to store the value 1. Okay, if I want to create one more variable y, I want to store a variable 2, value 2. Okay, so if I want to access this value, I need to use this key, right? From which object? Variable object. So in mule data view expression, it will not it will mean, if you want to extract any variable value, you no need to write variable name. They have given one name called vars. So basically, vars is an object. Vars is an object. So in that vars object, we have all the variables in a key value fair format. So if I want to access or extract any value for a particular variable, you need to use this object. So what is the expression you can write generally? Data view expression. Vars is an object, dot represents reference. So in this vars object, which variable you want to access? X. So once it got evaluated, what will be the value?
1.
1. So understood now? Vars is an object, and in that object we can store multiple variables. Okay. Now I write one more expression, vars dot z. What will be the value now for this? Will it
It
throw
is
any
not
exception?
yes.
Basically, it will not throw any exception. It will consider that variable got created z, but value is nothing assigned to that. So by default, it will be treated as null. Okay. So now I'm going to create one variable here. Sorry, erase this. So I'm going to create one variable. Variable will be having a key value pairs. So name I need to consider, and also value. Value will be in a expression mode always. Okay, always in the sense we can set that value in a expression mode also. Literal mode or expression mode, anything is fine. So name variable I can give as what? Any name you can suggest variable name. I will give as HW. Okay, and value will be, I want to store the value as what? Yeah, again I will switch to literal mode. Simply I will write hello world. So this is the key and this is the value. Okay, now what is the structure of an event here? Empty attributes. Payload is, what is the payload?
Hello, empty.
Empty, right? What about variables?
HW.
One variable I created with the name HW. Okay, now what I can do, I can create one more component where we can set the payload value. So by extracting the variable value, okay, I want to extract the variable value and set as a payload value. So in this set payload, there is no key, it is not a key value pair, it is only a value. So in the value I will set as what? I will switch to expression mode in this case, because dynamically I need to fetch the value. So what is the data view expression I can write? The syntax to write a data view expression is hash and a square bracket. Okay, this is the syntax. My mule runtime, when you deploy the application, it will understand that as a data view expression, whatever you write inside that. Can you please tell me how to extract this variable value? Just now we told vars
Vars
dot
dot
Dot HW.
HW.
HW. So this entire data view expression will be evaluated and it will emit hello world as a payload value. Correct? Now finally, what is the event structure? See, first time I'm drawing all these pictures here. From next time onwards, you will not see the queue, you will not see the event structure and anything. You need to visualize everything there, right? So tell me now, empty attributes, payload value is what? Hello world, and variable is HW. Okay. Now, finally, whatever, one second, I will write in green color. Whatever the event we have, till now the event is successfully, right? Is there any exception in between? No, right? So the successful event, if the event is success, finally the event is given back to the listener. Event is given back to the listener. So my listener will decide what response to be displayed back to the client as a response body. So what could be the response body here by default as per our understanding now? Body means payload. What is the
Hello
response payload?
world.
Hello, world.
Hello.
At the end of the flow, the entire event is given as an input to the listener, right? In that listener, it will decide. I mean, at which configuration level it will decide?
in the listener, there is one more window called responses. One more window called responses. That means what response you want to display to the client, you need to decide here. Basically, it is divided into two parts. First part is if the event is success. Second part is if your event is throwing in any exception, right? So right now the event is success, though we will not discuss about the second one because error handling section will discuss that later. So the first part, so in the first part, the body, the response body by default configured like this. Payload is a data view expression. Basically it's a keyword in a data view expression. What is the responsibility of that expression? It will extract the payload value in the event, and then that will be given as a response body. So now when client is sending this request to your mule application, what is the response body he is going to get? Hello
Hello. Hello world.
world. On what basis, who is deciding what response to be given? My listener response body is deciding that. So that means if I don't want a payload, and if I write simply I want to hide what response at the end of the application and just want to display successfully executed, so I will simply write a success. What is the response to the client now?
Success.
To response body to the client is success, but actual application payload is what? Application
Hello.
body is what? Hello world. Okay, so basically it is overriding the event payload at a listener level, but effectively in the application level it is hello world only. Got my point? Understood? From the request comes to the end, I mean giving back to the client. Please analyze this and ask me if you have any questions.
Sujit, one question here.
Yes,
So
please.
here when we do in the end of our flow, after setting the payload, the final payload, where it will create the body and all those things. So
Hmm.
and that event is passed on to the as a
Listen.
response to the listener, right?
Yeah,
So for that we don't have to do any exclusively. We don't have to
nothing.
mention anything, right?
That is the default operation.
So it is by if there is no more components in the flow, that means it will automatically think that we have
Exactly.
is the response and it will send it, right?
Exactly. At the end of the flow, you can blindly remember like once you complete at the end of the flow, whatever the structure of an event, that means whatever the values present in that event, like body, attributes, or variables, entire event will be carried to the listener. It's like a container. Okay. So it will carry all these goods. So like variables, attributes, payload, and all. So entire event is given back to the listener. Okay, now in the listener, in the body by default payload will be displayed to the client. Again it's up to you what you want to display to the client as a body in the listener level.
No.
Yeah, any other questions guys?
And Sujita, I don't know if it is too early to ask this question, but if once we set this payload in this event in this flow, and we
Hmm.
want to pass to the next flow, and
that
that
that we'll discuss later. As you
yeah,
told, it's too early. We'll go one by one.
okay, okay,
Okay, since you if you are aware, flow reference is the concept. Okay.
okay.
Okay,
So,
let me put. Yes, please.
so the one question. So, irrespective of even if you do not set this response value here, it will send the payload as the response, right?
Perfect.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so this is, I think I explained about the layout of Anypoint Studio, or I just only install that, only set up that. Basically, I'm in two batches in the same kind of a concept. That's why I'm getting confused frequently. But actually, it was not happened earlier. Since I'm in the same concept in the corporate training and this one, I'm getting a little bit confused here. Please let me know what I explained earlier about Anypoint Studio. Did I explain anything, or did I explain about a layout only?
Only layout, if I remember.
Okay, let's take this is your Anypoint Studio. I hope everyone landed in this page. Okay, now I want to create a new mule project. Project name I will give as Hello World. And whenever you are creating a project, you need to decide on what basis, I mean, which version of a mule runtime you want to add as a dependency to the project. So by default, Anypoint Studio comes along with your, Anypoint Studio comes with a Mule runtime, embedded Mule runtime. Okay. So by default, it will come with the latest runtime. What is that? 4.4. Okay. Now, if you want to install any other runtimes for this application as a dependency, go to install runtimes. There is a third option, enterprise runtime. So scroll it down. There is a 4.4, right? It is already added. You can see the difference in the plug symbol. So remaining all are not added. So if you want to add any other as a dependency, just you can select and click on next. It will take some time. That's the reason I'm going with the default. So I need to select which is already given to you as a, in the by default in the studio level. So I will select that 4.4. And API implementation, still we have not done any API. I will ignore this as of now. And what is the location? Default location. So right now, from now onwards, all the projects will be located in this folder. If you don't want that, uncheck this box and you can browse it and you can store it in any other place. Okay. Now click on finish. Your mule project is getting created. So it is setting up and it is going to build one project here. So from today, practical sessions are started. Definitely, you need to start practicing as well on daily basis. Okay. Otherwise, all the concepts will get piled up. On the left side, you can see the hello world and the structure. What is this structure? Did I explain this structure at least? No, right?
No, Sujit.
No. Okay. Now I created one project, right? How all these folders, all this got created? Any idea to anyone? Did I created this src main mule flow, src main java like that? No, right? But how all these got created? Internally, MuleSoft uses Maven as a build tool. So please go through about a Maven. I think I have given in the list, isn't it? I have given in the WhatsApp list. What are the concepts you need to go through? Uh, in that list, Maven is also part. I hope so,
Yeah.
right? So basics of Maven. So by default, all your Mule 4 projects are using Maven as a build tool. Okay. Under that, if you can see SRC, SRC means source main mule. Enter your mule flows should be written inside the SRC main mule. If you want to develop any Java class, in case that you can create under SRC main Java. For this development environment, if you have any additional resources like if you're dependent on like some JSON files or XML files or any other files, SRC main resources. These three are for a development environment. Okay. Similarly, if you want to write some test cases for the Java application what you created, or if you want to test mule logic, there is a munit framework. And if you want to have any additional resources a testing environment, you can keep under src test resources. These are for testing. This is the structure of your folder. Next, we have two modules by default added. Whenever you create any mule project, by default that will be treated as a REST project. So that's why they have given what is official protocol HTTP. HTTP module, and to establish a connection, socket is required. So socket is given. By default, whether you use it or not, these two modules are given as a dependencies. Along with that, I told if you don't set up JDK also on your environment variables, your Anypoint Studio will work because it is coming along with the JDK. It is an embedded JDK. Which version? By default, 8 version. One point you need to remember when you are developing the application deploying, if you are getting a Groovy issue, please understand that your setup of JDK in your system may be 11 and your Anypoint Studio using 8. So there is a conflict. That's why you will be getting a Groovy issue. if you are setting any, if you are installing any JDK on your machine, it should be 8. And if you want to work with any point studio, okay, so both should be matched, because the environment variables will overlap this embedded JDK version. Okay, 11 will not work, 11 will not supported by the any point studio, only 8 version. Okay, JDK 8. And why JDK is required? Are we developing any Java applications here? By default, behind the scenes, all your Mule applications are Java applications. To develop your Mule application, required a Java development kit. Of course, once you develop the application, you required to run that environment as well, right? So JDK is a development kit. JRE is a runtime environment. Obviously, it will part of your JDK itself. Okay. Next, now we added a Mule server as a dependency. That means Mule server 4.4 as a dependency to this project. And what is the minimum Mule version to deploy this application? Since we are using a Mule 4.4, here it will show minimum Mule version is 4.4 only. Okay, and since it is a Maven tool, where you can see all the dependencies, configurations, and everything under a pom.xml file. Every project will be uniquely identified by these three factors. Every project can be called as an artifact, right? So group ID is the company name, the domain name, basically I can say. And artifact ID means what? It's a project name. Artifact ID means a project name and version of that project. And how many dependencies are added to this project right now? How many modules are added as a dependency? Two modules. One is HTTP and one is socket. You don't need to configure or you don't need to add anything manually here. Everything drag and drop only, even the dependencies also. Okay, so first, whenever you create any project, by default one configuration XML will be created with the name of project name. Of course you can rename it. Okay, and now you can see this is the canvas. This place is called canvas, where you are going to write your logic and all. So first what I can do, uh, from the Mule palette is like a repository, okay, where you can find out all, I mean, modules. Any point studio will come with a list of modules, okay, that you can add from the add module section. Okay, some favorite components are given, frequently used components are given as a favorites, and some business components are listed here under the core module. You can use these connectors also. And HTTP and socket, these two are the modules. So if you want to add or remove any module to your project, from this place only you need to remove or add, not from the left side package explorer. Okay, if you add here, automatically it will be added in the package explorer. If you remove it, automatically updated in the package explorer. Okay, so if you are lazy like me, if you don't if you want to search with a keyword, there's an option called search in palette. Okay, now first, what is the component I need to configure in order to listen to the request? What is my request? From the postman you are getting some request like http localhost 8081 slash, what is the key, what is the base path I given as base path in the API slash hello world is the endpoint. That's what the API created. Accordingly, as a client from the postman, I'm trying to send a request. Now, according to this API, when I imported that to the AnyPoint Studio, assuming that we are importing that onto AnyPoint Studio, so we are going to create one flow where I can create a mule flow in the configuration XML file. I can create multiple flows also. Now I'm going to create one flow, empty flow. Just drag and drop the empty flow here. See, don't do parallelly. Just concentrate on the screen. You can do that later. I will be giving the recording also, right? And I mean, you will miss the concept if you do parallelly. Okay, so I'm drag and drop the hello world flow, right? It's an empty flow. In the go to configuration XML here, it is the XML format of your flow. Automatically, it is updated. So let's change the name here. HW1. Okay, I'm just changing the name of the flow. HW1. Right? Is it changed? So it's a vice versa. Now, first, what I can do, I need to drag and drop HTTP. Under the HTTP module, there is a connector called listener. Just drag and drop. If I drop on the canvas, automatically it will create one more flow and it will be placed in the source part. Now I don't want that. I already created one flow, right? I will drag and drop that to the flow. I will delete the empty flow. Okay, just select it and delete it. So can I say now the connection is it created? No, right? We need to establish a connection. If you click on that listener, it will give an option here. By using a plus sign, we can create a connection, or else if you can go to the global element from here also, you can create a connection. Okay. So in the listener, from here, I will try to do that. Every connector will be having a connector configuration. So what it says, for this listener, there is one attribute called config_ref. For that config_ref, we need to give a value. That means which configuration this listener is pointing to. That configuration we need to do. First of all, we need to create a connection for that. So by using a plus sign, we are going to create a one HTTP listener connection. I will give the name as connection 1. Okay, HTTP localhost 8081. Okay, and what is the base path? Here you can see base path we need to configure slash base path. So just you can click on a test connection. If that 8081 port is available, internally it is checking, deploying your application and checking that port number 8081 is it available or not, or is it occupied by some other application. It will cross check and it will let you know. If it is available, it will throw as a success like this. Otherwise, it will throw already 8081 port is occupied. Now my 8081 port is available and I created one connection on that. That connection can be used across the project because by default that will be treated as a global element. Okay. Now I given one connection, and how to identify this specific flow? I need to give the general path. What is the general path? Slash hello world. Right. Next, you need to visualize from now onwards. My listener is listening for the request, converts into event. Now I want to set variable. Variable is like an object which contains key value pair. What is the variable name I can give? HW in our explanation, right? And you can see the value. You can set the value by using an expression mode or a literal mode. So I will go with the literal mode. Hello world. Okay. So in that event, I created one variable. Now I want to set the payload value. See, by default, there is no key value pair. Payload is a only body contains only body, no key, right? So in the value, right now by default it will show in an expression mode, right? So what is the expression I should write in order to set the payload value from the variable? Yes,
Vars.hw.
simple. Whereas if you click on a dot, in the event you already created one variable, right? Automatically it will be displayed because of the data sense. Internally, MuleSoft uses data sense technology. See, once I click on a dot, what are the variables I created? Those will be listed. So HW. Got it? So this is a simple project I created, and one flow I got created here, and it's the first checkpoint to everyone. It's the first checkpoint to any of the flows. Okay. I mean from your side also, if your AnyPoint Studio is giving correct output, hello world output, okay, from there onwards you can easily you can easily create any complex projects also. That means your AnyPoint Studio is ready, the configurations are correct. Okay, you can treat like that. Next, I will deploy this application. How to deploy this application? Where I want to deploy? Do I need to have a separate server for that? Able to see the chat box and all. Yeah, tell me now. Yeah. Yeah, what I'm asking? Some question I'm asking. Yeah, how to deploy this application? Do I need to start Mule server separately? Since it's a Maven project, first we need to build that as a successful project, right? Once the Maven project is successful, then I need to start a Mule server. Then that build application should be deployed, right? All these steps will happen with a single click. Right click on this XML file, run project. Your entire project will be deployed. This is one option, and this option is equivalent to the another option. Right click on that, run as Mule application. These both options are same. And if you want to pass any runtime arguments, then you can use mule application configure. So I will go with a mule application now. On the console, if you can see, console is a place where we can see all the logs of your application. First, it will say build. If your project is not having any compilation issues, it will show as a success. Once the build is success, your embedded mule runtime in this location will be started automatically. Okay, once it is started, that build application will be deployed. So three steps: build, start, and deploy will be happen in this console run. Yeah, here you can see this is the log for your runtime. Status deployed means successfully started your mule server, and this is the log for your mule application. So which application? Hello world application got deployed. Status is deployed. And how can we say that mule server is started? You can see the red color bar. If you want to terminate your server, you can use this red option. I mean red color button. Okay. So now I started my application on 8081 port, and from the Postman as a client, I'm testing that. What is the output? Hello world. From where I got that output, if you can see the arrow mark, after the set payload, the entire event is given back to the listener. Now what my listener will do, under the responses, you can see under the listener, the responses, if there are no errors, what is the body? By default, the color, the theme also you can identify. Theme color of any data view expression in which color? Orange color. So if you want to visualize the data view expressions, that will be in orange color. Okay, any keywords in that. So what it is written in the expression mode, payload is written. Payload means it is extracting the payload value from the event and displayed as a response body. Now I don't want that. I will change it to success. Okay, success. I have done some changes in the application. You can see the star option there before the name of the hello world, right? So that means the changes are not yet applied. And also I want to check what information is given to the client. So I will use one component called logger. Logger is a component where it logs the information, whatever the information you want about the event. So the after set payload, the event is sent to the logger. In the logger, I will switch to expression mode and I will write payload. Any keyword you can write 3 characters and use a control space. Automatically it will fetch. So payload. So my logger will log the payload value at the end of the event to the console, and that event is sent to listener. My listener will override that payload to success. So in the logs you should see hello world, and at client level you should see success. Now just I save this application. Once I save this application, automatically your application will be undeployed, and with the changes again the application will be restarted. That means redeployed. So deployed. Now let's go and give a request. What is the response expected here? Success. Whatever I set in the response body, and I can see one info level log with a hello world as a output. Guys, is it clear? Whatever I explained in this picture, are you able to visualize practically as well? So in this
Yeah.
weekend, please get this output, hello world output, and you just play with this variable and play with this payload. And coming sessions, we are going to see more dynamic expressions, how to write, how based on the dynamic input, how you will be getting a dynamic output, and few other concepts also. Okay, that's all from my end for today. Any questions? Okay, please practice it, and you can go with, okay, no, don't go with any document as of now, just practice based on the video for today. Next, once I talk about input parameters, then I will talk about one more document where you need to practice. Yes, Shalini.
Uh, Sorry, I'm
Okay. Okay then, thank you guys.